guys, and welcome to the show. And today I'm going to be discussing two things. Firstly, my latest acquisition, which I'm pleased to announce is an Omega Speedmaster. And secondly, I'll be touching on the new iWatch or Apple Watch or whatever they're deciding to call it. Obviously you can tell off the bat that I'm not particularly interested, but there are some things that I do feel are worth addressing, especially in relation to the mechanical or traditional watchmaking industry. Anyway, firstly I want to talk about my new Speedmaster. I'm really over the moon, no pun, well, pun partly intended. I really am over the moon with it. This is the 3539-.50. Now I know what you're thinking. Oh, that's not the man on the moon, la-di-da-di, and all the rest of it. I am fully aware of that. Let me explain why I went with this particular model in more detail. This is let me take it off so you can have a closer look. This is the Omega Speedmaster reduced, and it's a really sweet little piece. There's two versions of the reduced. There's the first one, which has a slightly different dial design. You can basically tell the difference between them, as this is the later version, and it has the two little pips. Sorry, let me get in focus. Come on. It has the two little pips at the top. The previous one doesn't have that, and there's also some slight variations in the dial design. But the reason I went for this is because it ticked so many boxes. It's a vast improvement to the old Seamaster Reduced. I actually had the Seamaster Reduced, and then I stupidly sold it. I did the classic thing of well, you know, of lusting after the man on the moon, and then once I got the man on the moon, within a week I was like, it's not really that much, you know. I mean, it's a little bit bigger. Obviously, it has the prestige, you know, because it's the model. Well, it's not the model that went to the moon, but it's based on that model. So it had, you know, the watch enthusiasts, the purists, you know, always hark on about this particular one. And I just found myself actually kind of missing the reduced, partly because I got used to the fact that it was automatic, and the fact that it's a lot more, it's about 2 or 3 millimeters small in diameter. For me, you guys know I have tiny little wrists. It's very weird because I've got big hands. I got big hands, but tiny little wrists. I'm not complaining. Yeah, you can make your own connotations. I'm not going to touch that one. But yeah, as you see, I've got really like long, big hands and tiny little wrists. So for me, smaller watches just work better, they fit better, and also they kind of complement me better. You know, if you're slender, or if you've got skinny wrists like me, the smaller the watch, the more kind of masculine it makes you look, you know. Also, I'm not really into this big watch trend. I had a few big pieces out of Breitling, you know, I had a few big pieces, but it just never felt right, and they never wore right, and you know, so for me, smaller is better. And I also do believe that we're gonna, I don't think we're gonna go back to the sizes of, you know, the 50s and 60s, but I do believe that you know, that we're gonna return to a more conservative size, around about 42 mils. I think really is a fantastic size. This is underneath. This is actually 38, I believe, which is pretty tiny, but it's just so elegant, and I had my eye on this particular one for a while. It was a spur of the moment buy. You know, usually you guys know I do a video where I talk about, you know, I do a bit of online browsing and I weigh up my options, and then I ask what you guys think. Well, this one was one of my favorite American expressions, a no-brainer. I had been waiting and waiting and waiting to see one of these available in the United States, because I could only find them in Japan. So model that they no longer make. This is the newer reduced, so vast improvements of the previous reduced. Anyway, so I saw this deal come up, and I just had to pounce on it. I had to go for it. It was in such good condition, really good nick. It's minty mint, absolutely mint, box papers, the rest of it. So I just jumped on it, and we'll talk about how it's going to affect my other long-term, bigger purchasing goals for the year, because it has definitely affected that. But first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about this particular version. The difference between this and the previous reduced is this has now got sapphire glass, which I know again, it's the Man on the Moon had Hesselite and la-di-da. The previous version had Hesselite, but I found it did actually scratch quite easily. I'm quite careful with my watches, but I don't really like the idea of having something so scratchable, and I've got used to wearing quite a lot of diver watches, and not having to worry about scratching the glass, especially when you have quite a pronounced dome, as you see there. I just don't want to have to worry about it. So that was great. Also, they've improved the water resistance from 50 meters to 100. Excuse me. Which is great, because now you can wash your hands without having a panic attack. So that's great. Also, they've dramatically improved the clasp. They've actually given it the full Speedmaster, as you can see there, clasp with the push button. Before it was just a fold over. This is so much more secure, so much vast improvement. Clasp isn't a major thing for me, but because I've just ordered a whole bunch of straps for this, and that's another thing I want to discuss, is that it is, I can't remember who said, but somebody said that expensive watches are becoming dress watches now, and there's nothing more elegant than or classy than a Speedmaster on a strap. I mean, you only have to look at George Clooney in the film The American, where he wears his Speedmaster on a black, I think it's just a very plain, tasteful black strap, and it's just pure class. Also, I love the dial design. I absolutely adore the kind of subtle changes they made over the last reduce. So it really does tick a lot of boxes, and I know people kind of it's not a real Speedmaster because it's automatic and la-di-da-di and all the rest of it. But to be honest, if it's one thing I've learned in this horological kind of journey, is that don't worry what other people say. I was a victim to kind of peer pressure, if you will, with my last reduced, and certain people saying, oh, it's not a proper Speedmaster, blah blah blah. It is a Speedmaster. It says Speedmaster on it. It's made by Omega. Sure, it's not the one that went up in a rocket into outer space, but at the same time, it's still in the family. It's still the same blood and bones. I just adore it, and they criticize the movement. The movement, this is the 3220 caliber movement from Omega. It's been used in a lot of Speedmasters. I think even IWC might have used that movement. So I did see it come up on a few forums of a few IWCs. So it's fine. It's still Omega. It's still a great movement, And to be honest, when I did have the Man on the Moon, I forgot to wind. It. So I kept looking at it, and I'm just so used to automatics, and I know I would have eventually got round it. I eventually got used to it, but I didn't really have it that long. I ended up kind of being put off the whole Speedmaster thing. But I always loved the Speedmaster line, and I'm so glad I've managed to track down, finally get one that was within the United States, that was in fantastic condition with all the box and papers. That is the second version of the Speedmaster, which ticks all my boxes. And to be honest, my opinion is this is a far more of a faithful Speedmaster. This is far more of a faithful Speedmaster to the original than some of these you know, special edition monstrosities that they have now, which I really, it's not my cup of tea. You know, rose gold and you know, maybe I'm boring, maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I just think in the long run they won't age as well. You know, it's such a iconic traditional design that I think this is much more faithful actually to the Man on the Moon. Sure that the dial is slightly different layout. You know, the sub dials are slightly pushed out a little bit because the whole watch is a little bit more smaller, so they appear that they're further out, but actually it's just because the whole watch is slightly smaller. But I'm over the moon, and to have the red box back in the shelf along with all my other boxes, it's been a long time coming, and I think it's important to have an Omega back in the fold. And one Omega that is personal to me, that not everybody has the same one, you know. So it really feels comfortable to me. I'm absolutely over the moon. Again, pun partially intended. It's just perfect. So, you know, I did have a vintage Omega not so long ago. I had problems with it because it's a vintage piece. Beautiful design, beautiful, absolute stunning watch. But you know, it was very fragile. A few little gentle knocks, and you know, I had problems with the date and la-di-da, and I had to send it back, and it was up. So you know, I didn't end up keeping it. But this one, you know, this is from 2010, I believe. They no longer produce these, but this is the later version from the late noughties, so 2010, 2011, I think. So it's more robust, and as I said, you know, it has that improved water resistance. It does have the sapphire, and I'm in love with it. I absolutely adore it. It's so neat and small, and you know, it's fine. And I did spend, it was quite a lot of money, because this newer version is harder to track down. You can't really find them for less than $2,000, 2,000 US dollars. There are a couple of really mint ones in Japan for about 2,200, 2,400, around that. And then I found this one. I put in an offer, the guy accepted, beautifully wrapped, beautifully, you know, all the documents, all the bits and bobs, you know, so I'm just over the moon. Anyway, full review coming soon, as you'd expect. I'm probably going to wait for a few straps, dress it up, and you know, so you can see it in a variety of combinations, and yeah, I'm just over the moon. Over the moon is the phrase. So anyway, on to the next point. I've been having a conversation with Brutus. Now, Brutus the Great, he's a long-time fan, commentator, viewer, supporter of the channel. He's been there since the beginning, through thick and thin. And it's views like that I really appreciate, and we talk regularly. He works in London, and terrific bloke, and we talk quite a little bit about watches. Anyway, he sent me an email, and I hope you don't mind, Brutus, me reading some of this out. He goes, I'm a little torn, but can happily say that I will not be buying an iWatch. I'm not a big Apple user, but I get on really well with my iPhone and believe that my iPad is best and the most used bit of tech that I have ever bought. I think the problem with the watch is that on an annual basis it will become outdated, and within a decade it will probably be obsolete. It will never be a sign of stature or wealth, and has no substantial history. Maybe in 100 years' time people will look back on the first generation of smartwatches in the same way we look back at classic timepieces. But the only thing they will probably not be able to they will probably not be able to use them, as the battery will no longer hold charge or be charge compatible. However, we'll still in 100 years marvel at the mechanical movements keeping great time day after day. And actually that got me thinking, because we were discussing the future of the watch industry, the mechanical watch industry, the traditional watch industry. Brutus was in slight kind of had concerns that, you know, maybe it's you know, a few people in fact said that maybe it's that we are a dying breed, that mechanical watches are not gonna last, and the demand, and you know, less and less people will want them, and which I think is a really interesting thing to discuss. Now, firstly, regarding the iWatch or iWatch or Apple Watch, regarding the iWatch, I looked into it. I looked at the CNET presentations, and I saw a bunch of videos of people that are into horology talking about it. It appeared to me that you know, you have the entry-level versions, which are fine, you know, a couple of $100 or however much they cost, and I think that's fine. I have nothing against them. Personally, I would never buy one. I'm not interested really in an you know, my phone and my watch are two separate things. I like it that way. The only time I get really kind of techie or digital with timepieces is when we're talking ABC watches, but those are a specific for a specific use. You know, that's mainly for outdoor activities. If there was a smartwatch that was durable and built with ABC sensors in it and features, then maybe I'd consider it. But it'd have to be very tough and robust. So again, you know, when tech meets watches, I'm looking at it for a different use and a different perspective. Then I did make a video months and months ago talking about a hybrid watch that had smartphone technology layered with a mechanical watch underneath, and a screen that was able to, I think it was called Kairos or something like that. With a mechanical, like on the screen was like an iPhone screen, and underneath you'd have a traditional watch, mechanical, and you could tap it and do things, right? Apps and all the rest of it. That's an interesting concept, but me personally, I'm not interested in an iWatch. And what kind of, not angered me, but what kind of really kind of rubbed me up the wrong way was this 10 grand gold luxury iWatch, which is ridiculous, because it's, first of all, you can't just make something in solid gold and call it luxury. That's not luxury, that's vulgarity. You know, different thing. You know, just because it's gold doesn't mean it's luxury, okay? As you know, I don't care for I'm not trying to be a luxury channel or any of that. It's the least interested in that kind of thing. A lot of things I buy happen to be luxury because I want to buy things of a high standard. You know, I'm not interested in the bling factor. I'm not interested in you know, the status. I'm not in, you know, I got to make that distinction. I'm not really into luxury. I do end up buying a few luxury items because I want the quality. I want that extra craftsmanship. I'm willing to pay when it's justified for it. You know, if I buy a good pair of shoes, you know, I'm going to try and buy the, you know, best. I would try and be economical, but, you know, usually luxury has an association with quality. Just making something solid gold doesn't mean the quality is any better. In fact, it's decreased because gold is a softer metal, and so it becomes a vulgar kind of you know, it's just, and also 10 grand. It's a huge waste of money. I mean, think of the horology. I mean, real horology you could buy for 10 grand. You could buy a whole collection. You know, you could have a fantastic range of watches. You could have a Rollie in there, you could have an Omega in there, and a few beaters, you know. So that kind of angered me, that they kind of slightly condescending and insulting to the real luxury watch industry. That they just think, oh, it's just because it's gold, it's something better. Absolute rubbish. So that really irritated me. And it just shows that they have no understanding of the history of horology. They have no understanding of watches and in general. You know, it's almost a kind of a very puerile and ignorant way to kind of woo a market. You know, that's not how you go about it. If you want to make a luxury iWatch, you've got to really innovate. You've got to innovate on a design level, make something beautiful that is of high quality, that, you know, uses precious metals and whatever you want to work in, platinum or whatever, in interesting and creative and inspiring ways, in new ways. You want to innovate. You know, it's quite surprising that a company like Apple does such a kind of moronic take on luxury watches. It's unbelievable, really, and I'm kind of disappointed. But anyway, to get back to what Brutus was saying, he basically explained exactly my position. I mean, I love my Apple products. They're very useful, and yeah, they're not the best, but they're certainly a lot better than what else is out there, and I use them every day, and they're invaluable and they're fantastic. But you know, my tech and my watches I kind of want to keep separate. That's just how I am. I'm sure further down the line, when they offer something a little bit more interesting design-wise, you know, if they really know what they're doing, they should study watch design over the last 100 years, and they should incorporate that into something new. And I hope they do that. I keep my mind open to the smartwatch phenomenon. You know, so I think there's definite room for growth and innovation and development there. Undoubtedly, you know, it's going to be a big market one day. Now, this kind of brings me on, how's it going to affect the traditional watchmaking world? And now there's a view that mechanical watches are kind of, you know, it's a dying art, or it's a dying, you know, the people that are into it are decreasing. Well, if that is the case, then surely it's the fault of the industry, that they're not pushing it hard enough, that they're not innovating hard enough, that they're not offering products that are more accessible, that are of, you know. So I think you know, my typical reaction to a negative kind of situation is, well, you got to try harder. You know, there's no point complaining about it. You got to get on. You got, you know. I think I think there will be a demand in the future. I think if the watch industry capitalizes on the romanticism, and that link to the heritage and the link to the past, and they make the consumer understand that you're buying something that will last, that will you be able to hand down to the next generation. That is not just some disposable, like a car that you buy these days that lasts a couple of years and then you have to write it off and buy a new one. You know, it's something that lasts. You know, they have to kind of push this in this direction more, and it will certainly get more competitive. I wouldn't want to, you know, trying to release and make a design or a watch nowadays must be absolutely it must be cutthroat. I can't imagine what it's like. It must be harder than ever, you know. So I am optimistic. I just think people have got to work harder, and they've got to kind of innovate. And you know, just as they dealt with the quartz crisis, I think the watch industry will bounce back. I'm sure around the corner there's going to be further developments, further. You know, just look at what Oris has been doing in the last couple of years with their first aviation watch with an actual altimeter, an analog altimeter built in. They've got the Aquis, the gauge, the Aquis gauge with a depth meter built in, and this is analog again. So, you know, the technology is allowing people to still bring new things to the table. But what I feel there needs to be more emphasis on is selling it and getting new people into the hobby, into the art of appreciating of watchmaking, of appreciating this ancient, well, not ancient, but you know, hundreds of years of heritage, you know. And I'm optimistic for the future. I think the watch industry will succeed. I am open-minded and excited about smartwatches. I'm not ready to I'm not going to buy an iWatch anytime soon, that's for sure. But you know, I think it's down to us as well. I mean, if you're interested in watches, you should pass that hobby and that passion and that love on. Pass it down to your kids, pass it on to your loved ones. Now I'm getting my wife more into it, and she's starting to borrow watches, and you know, she absolutely adores the Seiko Saab 033. It fits her perfectly. She loves the understated sophistication of it. It's an affordable piece, and it's perfect for her, and she wears it more than I do, you know. So you know, it's down to us, it's down to the industry, but I'm optimistic. You know, I stay optimistic. Anyway, guys, a rather long ramble. I'll leave it there. But thank you very, very much for watching, and stay tuned for the full review of the Omega Speedmaster. More videos Monday to Friday. A lot of watch videos this week. I think it's kind of a rollover from my week off during Miami. You know, it's to be expected. But next week there's going to be more kind of sartorial, a few product reviews, some techie stuff as well. I haven't done a film review for a while, so I'll be getting back into that as well. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe, like this video if you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you next time. Okay, ciao guys, ciao.